MSB, Kape at Balita sa Umaga. Hatid sa inyo ni Kuya Dong. Magandang umaga po mga kasangga. Ito naman po tayo, April 25, Martes ng umaga. Welcome po sa ating Daily Dose of News sa Magkasangga sa Buhay, Kape at Balita sa Umaga. Naghahatid po ng mga nagbabagang balita at kaganapan sa loob at labas ng ating bansa sa loob po lamang ng higit sa 30 minutos. Bago po tayo magsimula sa ating pagbabalita, samahan niyo lang po muna ako sa isang maikling panalangin. Mahal naming lumikha, maraming salamat sa bagong araw na ipinagkaloob niyo sa amin. Sa mapayapang gabing lumipas at sa patuloy na pagbuhos ng iyong mga biyaya sa amin at sa aming bayan. Naway ipagkaloob mo po sa amin ang lakas at tibay ng loob upang mapaglabanan ang kasamaan at manatili po kami sa paggawa ng mabuti sa kapwa at pagsunod sa inyong itinurong tamang landas. Lahat ng gawain namin, inaalay namin sa iyong anak na si Jesus, na aming Panginoon. Amen. Sa ngalan ng Ama, Anak, Espiritu Santo. Amen. Magandang umaga po muli mga kasangga, mga kasama. Sa ngalan ng Ama, Anak, Espiritu Santo. At para po sa ating top news po natin ngayong araw na to, simulan po muna natin sa top news po dito sa ating bansa. Mula sa Rappler, Philippines. Marcos eyes U.S. green bonds ahead of Biden meeting. Mula po ito sa Rappler by Bea Kape. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. said on Monday, April 24, that the Philippines is eyeing green bonds from the United States ahead of a scheduled bilateral meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House. Marcos is set to visit Washington, D.C. on May 1st to meet with Biden for their second bilateral meeting since the Philippine president took office. We'll see if, because so many things have changed, climate change has become a huge issue and we want to see what else we can do, what strategies we can take. The U.S. has something called the Green Bond. That means they can offer funds to help us. For instance, it can be used for the no-build zones in moving away structures from the sea so they're less vulnerable to strong storms, Marcos said in Filipino during an interview on state-run Radio Pilipinas, Erwin Tulfo on air with Mina Purpose. According to the U.S. Energy Department, green bonds are financial instruments that allow issuers to borrow large sums of money for use in sustainability focused projects. Green bonds are part of the Biden administration's initiatives to tackle climate change. At the United Nations Climate Conference, Biden administration announced plans to launch climate finance, a program to accelerate the use of innovative finance mechanisms that aim to leverage billions in new public and private investment in low and lower middle income countries. This climate finance effort will support potential green bonds and other climate related financing through MCC technical assistance in Indonesia, Mozambique, and Zambia, and USAID support for the development of green bonds in at least five additional countries via public private partnership, said the White House in a November 2022 release. The Philippines is among the countries worst impacted by changes in the climate. Speaking before politicians and business leaders in Bangkok in November 2022, Marcos said climate change was the most pressing existential challenge of our time. South China Sea, Taiwan. Marcos said he would also be bringing up the Mutual Defense Treaty and Visiting Forces Agreement with Biden during the meeting. It has to evolve because the situation in South China Sea is also evolving. There's also Taiwan, North Korea, and all these things indicate that the situation here is heating up, the president said in a mix of English and Filipino. Marcos said he wants to make clear the partnership between the two countries, what we can do to lessen the rhetoric, because nowadays the topics are sensitive and harsh words are being uttered. So we want to address that, he added. Ties between Washington and Manila have seemingly strengthened under Marcos, or at least compared to the time of his immediate predecessor, Rodrigo Duterte. Despite promising continuity to the Duterte administration's policy, Marcos had been much warmer towards the US, even as he's made efforts to keep good ties with China. Under Marcos, Americans were granted access to four more Philippine bases under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, a move China has reacted strongly against, accusing the US of worsening tensions in the region. Chinese ambassador to Manila, Xin Lian, advised the Philippines to reject Taiwan independence if it cared about the Filipino workers in the independently governed country, which China claims as its own. Marcos has downplayed Huang's statements and, over the weekend, met the Chinese Foreign Affairs Minister Qin Gang to clarify things. Marcos is flying to the US days after Balikatan, the annual joint exercises between Filipino and American troops, wraps up. The 2023 edition of the first under his administration and, according to the US Embassy, is the biggest thus far. Aside from the bilateral meeting with Biden, Marcos and the Philippine delegation are expected to meet with their counterparts in a bigger meeting. Malacanang earlier announced that the meeting would cover a wide range of issues, including tourism, healthcare, cultural exchanges, among other things. Moving on to the next headline. Marcos' economic team sees high growth, higher inflation in 2023. also from Rappler by Ralph Rivas. The economic team of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is expecting the Philippine economy to outpace its peers in Asia, alongside inflation rising higher than initially expected. The Development Budget Coordination Committee on Monday, April 24, maintained its gross domestic product growth target of 6% to 7% for 2023 and 6.5% to 8% for 2024 to 2028, factoring in geopolitical and trade tensions, a possible global economic slowdown, and weather disturbances in the country. In 2022, GDP grew 7.6%, outperforming the 6.5% to 7.5% target and surpassing Southeast Asia's growth of 5.6%. While growth is expected to remain high, the inflation is expected to be higher. This is even as the assumption of the price of Dubai crude oil was lowered to $70 to $90 per barrel, and amid fears of a global demand slowdown. The peso dollar exchange rate assumption was also adjusted towards downwards to 53 to 57. It is expected to be within the same level as until 2028 on the back of expected inflows from improvements in tourism revenues and overseas Filipino remittances. Inflation is Marcos' stickiest economic issue today, with 52% or majority of Filipinos disapproving of his administration's performance in controlling it, based on a recent Pulse Asia survey. In 2022, inflation averaged at 5.8%. Employment figures also have painted a murky picture of the state of the labor market. While there have been more Filipinos employed now than before the pandemic, a bulk of the new jobs that were generated are unpaid. The number of self-employed individuals has also remained the same, showing tough conditions in getting a job these days. On to the next headline. For our global news, from Rappler, China-Singapore plan military drills as Beijing forges defense ties. By Reuters, Beijing, China. China and Singapore will hold a joint military exercise as soon as this week, their first combined drills since 2021, as Beijing deepens its defense and security ties with Southeast Asia, a region with strong existing U.S. alliances. The Chinese Navy will deploy a missile-bearing frigate, the Yulin, and a mine-hunting ship, the Chilby, to the joint maritime exercise, which will last from late April to early May. The Chinese Defense Ministry said in a statement on its website on Monday, April 24th, without specifying the location. 2 years ago, China and Singapore held a combined military drill in international waters at the southern tip of the South China Sea, following the upgrade of a bilateral defense pact in 2019 to include bigger scale exercises among their Army, Navy, and Air Force. The deeper China-Singapore military cooperation comes as a time of heightened tensions in the South China Sea, an area spanning 3.5 million square kilometers. that is often traversed by Western navies, including U.S. vessels conducting freedom of navigation operations. Such passages annoy China, which lays claims to nearly all of the South China Sea, despite an international ruling to the contrary. In August last year, the U.S. military conducted an expanded Super Garuda shield exercise with Indonesia that saw the participation of Singapore, Japan, and Australia for the first time. Around the same time, China sent fighter bombers to Thailand in Joint Air Force drills codenamed Falcon Strike 2022. Both countries say the exercises in northeast Thailand, near the border with Laos, were defensive in nature. The drills last summer also took place against the backdrop of elevated tensions in the Taiwan Strait following the visit of former U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to the democratically governed Taiwan, which China claims as its own. China's increased military engagement in Southeast Asia is widely expected to challenge the influence that the United States has shaped with countries including Singapore and Indonesia in coming years. On to our next global news. Roma pilgrims seek just one glimpse of Pope Francis at Hungary Mass, also from Rappler, provided by Reuters. Budapest, Hungary. When Pope Francis visited Hungary 2 years ago, Roma pilgrim Saba Kovesi, accompanied by a cross blessed by Francis and Pope John Paul II, drove around the country calling on people to travel to Budapest to see him. Now Kovesi is on a repeat mission during a pickup, driving a pickup resembling a Pope mobile with a cross on display, hoping to convince people to attend an open-air mass led by Francis in front of Parliament on Sunday. We, Roma, who live in this faith, would really love to get near him, just get one glimpse, said Kovesi as he prepared his pickup emblazoned with photos of Francis for the drive. Faith is the greatest thing in the world, and we Roma people think we can prove our belonging by getting near the greatest man on earth. Hundreds of thousands of Roma in Hungary live in disproportionate poverty and suffer from prejudice in schools and workplaces, right activists say. During a visit to Romania in 2019, the Pope asked for forgiveness in the name of the Roman Catholic Church for the mistreatment of Roma people. Kovesi, 50, had his 1.5-meter high cross carved for a Roma pilgrimage to the Vatican in 2003. He said Pope John Paul II blessed the cross and the group. The cross was then taken to the Hungarian village of Chatka, a holy place for Roma in Central and Eastern Europe, where a small chapel was built for it. Holy God help the Roma, says an inscription on the crucifix in Lovari language. They carried the cross twice more than to the Vatican, where Francis also blessed it, Covesi said. When I told him that Roma have no country, no homeland of their own, but we are children of the church, Covesi said. And as the translator translated this, at that moment he came to me directly and blessed me. Moving on to our regional news. From Inquirer, DA-SRA urged to see clouds to help save crops in Negros Occidental. From Inquirer.net by Carla Gomez. Bacolod City. A lawmaker from Negros Occidental is asking government offices to conduct cloud seeding to mitigate the effects of warm and dry season that affected the province's crops, including its sugarcane. Rep. Emilio Bernardino Yulo of Negros Occidental's 5th District turned to the Department of Agriculture, the Sugar Regulatory Administration (SRA), and the provincial government for help to save the plants. We are in the middle of planting and cultivation, particularly in sugar industry. Getting this extreme heat will have a drastic effect on agriculture, Yulo said in an interview on Sunday, April 16. The congressman said concerned agencies should come up with a plan and start preparing for cloud seeding to ensure that our industry will not suffer from the extreme weather. Negros Occidental is the Philippines' major sugar producer, which contributes almost half of the country's total production, with 9 sugar factories, 7 of which have refineries, according to the Provincial Economic Development and Investment Center, a group mandated to provide investor servicing and facilitating to cater to the needs of local and foreign investors. Yulo said efforts are being done to ensure that the sugar industry increases its productivity. We need to make sure that these efforts will not go to waste because we are not prepared to combat the effects of a dry spell, which is totally beyond the control of our farmers, he said. Although intense heat has been felt, the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration said El Nino would likely develop starting July and may persist until 2024. Manuel Lamata, president of the United Sugar Producers Federation, said the dry spell would definitely cause a drop in sugar production. Governments should help download their solar-powered irrigation pumps to help the farmers irrigate the sugar fields, he said. Enrique Rojas, president of the National Federation of Sugarcane Planters, said the dry season poses a challenge to planters and millers. They should work together to ensure that the sugarcane is transported and milled as soon as possible after they are harvested to minimize the loss of sugarcane juice due to evaporation caused by the dry weather, he said. Aurelio Gerardo Valderrama Jr., president of the Confederation of Sugar Producers Association, said irrigated farms would have their better production. However, for most areas where agrarian reform beneficiaries are located, production would definitely go down, he said. Moving on to sports. From Rappler, Sanggalang denies involvement in game-fixing mess, plans legal action by Delphine Dioquino. Magnolia big man Ian Sanggalang plans to take legal action against a Singaporean businessman who dragged his name into a game-fixing mess. Kuo Kwan faces 14 graft charges before the state courts in Singapore after being accused of trying to influence games in the PBA and the Thailand Basketball League, amounting to nearly 70,000 US dollars in bribes. According to a report by the Straits Times, Koa allegedly offered Sanggalang a bribe of $5,000 to fix Game 5 of the Hot Shots 2018 Philippine Cup Finals clash against the San Miguel Beermen. Magnolia went on to absorb a 108-99 double overtime loss as San Miguel wrapped up the series to capture the All-Filipino crown. Sanggalang finished Game 5 with 11 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block against a game-high 8 turnovers. The two-time second mystical team member, though, denied ever knowing Koa. "I never knew that man," Sanggalang told PBA Commissioner Willie Marshall in Filipino during their meeting on Monday, April 24, according to a report published on the PBA website. "I'll never trade my career and dignity for that kind of thing." Aside from Sanggalang, unknown players from the Blackwater Elite and former TBL import Almon Bosotros, who now stars for the TNT Tropang Giga in PBA 3x3, were allegedly offered bribes by Koa. Marshall said on Saturday, April 22, that the league will launch a probe on the game-fixing scandal, which is said to have transpired from April to July 2018. Continuing with sports, also from Rappler, Belga suspended by rain or shine for role in Cebu game. PBA to summon involved players by Delphin Giacchino. Rain or shine cracked the whip on veteran big man Bo Belga on Monday, April 24, for his involvement in an unsanctioned basketball game in Cebu where a brawl erupted. The Elasto Painters suspended Belga for 6 days without pay and said will further conduct an investigation on the matter. Belga, together with fellow PBA standouts GR Kinyahan of NLEX, Gio Halalon of Magnolia, and Robert Bolick of Northport, played against a team composed of foreign players. A fight broke out between Kinyahan and an opposing player, who hit the Road Warriors star with a barrage of punches. Belga, a former teammate of Kinyahan at Rain or Shine, retaliated by throwing the ball at the opposing player before cooler heads prevailed. PBA Commissioner Willie Marshall said on Monday that he will summon the concerned PBA players who are facing possible punishments. In 2020, the PBA released a memo which stated that players who take part in the unsanctioned games without the approval of their mother teams and the league will pay a minimum fine of 50,000 pesos. Violators can also be slapped with the league-imposed suspension. And for our last news for today, also from sports, by Rappler, Heat guard Victor Oladipo out for rest of playoffs with knee injury, provided by Reuters. Miami Heat Victor Oladipo suffered a torn patellar tendon in his left knee on Saturday, April 22, and is done for the remainder of the playoffs. The team announced Sunday that an MRI exam confirmed the diagnosis. The Heat did not indicate how the torn tendon would impact his 2023-24 season. The injury occurred in the fourth quarter of the Heat's 21-99 win over the Milwaukee Bucks in their Eastern Conference first round series. He drove to the basket, collapsed to the floor, and grabbed his left knee. He was helped off the court. After the game, Coach Eric Spolstra knew it was serious without the benefit of medical testing, and it's the latest blow for Oladipo, who has fought through injuries the past 4 seasons. It was a great win, but when you see a player go down like that, and particularly a player like Vic, who has gone through so much in the last 3 years, I don't know what it is right now. So I don't want to jump the gun on anything, as Foster said. But that's definitely not a good feeling to see. Oladipo, who turns 31 next month, was the number 2 overall pick in the 2013 NBA draft by the Orlando Magic. He played with the Magic and the Oklahoma City Thunder until he was traded in July 2017 as part of the deal that sent Paul George from the Indiana Pacers to the Thunder. He became a two-time All-Star in Indiana before suffering a ruptured quad tendon in his right knee in January 2019 that required a lengthy recovery and eventually a second surgery. Over the next 3 seasons, he was limited to 60 total games. He has not played more than 60 games in a season since 2017-18. His high since then came this season with 42 for the Heat, who signed him for a 2-year, $18.2 million deal that includes 9.45 million player option for next season. With the Heat in 2022-2023, Oladipo has averages of 10.7 points, 3.5 assists, and 3 rebounds. His career averages in 504 games, 397 starts, are 16.9 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 3.9 assists. He had 8 points on a 4 of 6 shooting before the injury on Saturday. The Heat have a 2-1 series lead over the top-seeded Milwaukee Bucks, who were without superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo, who missed the past 2 games with a back injury. But with Oladipo's injury, the Heat find themselves short-handed at guard. Tyler Hero broke his right hand in the first game of the series. Veteran Kyle Lowry stepped up Saturday night to score 15 points in 28 minutes from Rappler. So NBA is infested with injury. The players are infested with injuries. And that concludes our news updates for today, April 25, 2023, Tuesday. And anong pupunta tayo? Shout out sa mga nag-join. So, shout out and good morning to GRJ Esquiliarga is watching. Renz Arenas is also watching. Good morning. Damarin Cordova is watching. Good morning. Tarlac Ash is also watching. Beverly Arbarlan is watching. Good morning. And si Papsi, Rolly Gonzalez is also watching. Good morning, Paps. Si Brother Edwin Evangelista Corpus is also watching. Good morning, bro. Si Marisol is also watching at si Admin Sol. Aimee Afable Pasqua is watching us. Good morning, Aimee. And Nate and Brother Manix Cruz is also watching. Good morning, Nate. Thanks for joining the news update for today. I'll see you again tomorrow for our next program on MSB, Kape at Balita sa Umaga. MSB, Kape at Balita sa Umaga. Hatid sa inyo ni Kuya Dog.
sa lahat ko'y napapapaya.